Close your eyes. Imagine we are 30 years into the future in the year 2050. What do you see? Flying cars? Robots taking over?
The human has been neutralized.
An elevator to the moon? What about all of the energy we consume on a daily basis being 100% derived from renewable resources? While we're unsure about the flying cars, we know that this last fantasy is not too far off.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The Sustainable Development Goals Act proposes that Nova Scotia will reach a net zero carbon footprint by 2050. This means that any CO2 produced in the province must be countered with either biological or technical processes that will negate the amount of carbon emitted into the atmosphere. Because sustainable energy is such a huge topic, this video is going to focus on residential and commercial utilities. Nova Scotia Power, the province's largest electric utility company, has promised 40% of the province's total electricity to come from renewable energy sources by 2020, and this number is expected to increase to 60% by 2021.
The province is expected to come close to hitting its 2020 goals this year through various initiatives, from small-scale solar panel incentives to major investments in wind farms. Nova Scotia Power is planning on reallocating almost double the $45 million expected to refurbish coal and petcoke facilities towards decommissioning these activities, as well as an additional $310 million each year on renewable infrastructure until 2030.
While Nova Scotia has come a long way in terms of implementing long-term renewable infrastructure, we still have a while to go before reaching the 2050 net zero target. Since 2016, the province's CO2 production has been on the rise due to increased emissions from buildings, electricity, and transportation. If these numbers continue to climb, Nova Scotia could exceed its 2020 CO2 emissions limit, making it harder and more expensive in the long run to reach our end goals.
So, the burning question is, how will we achieve this massive transition to sustainable electricity, and what is the potential of green energy in Nova Scotia?
In order to understand just how much electricity is generated by renewable sources in the province, we first have to shed some light on how it is measured. A watt is the basic unit of power we use when discussing electricity, but when we talk about measuring power, kilowatt hours is what we refer to. 1 kilowatt hour is equivalent to 1,000 watts continuously used or produced per hour. To put this into perspective, one solar panel can produce 1.5 kilowatt hours a day at peak production, enough to power a typical 1,000 watt microwave. On average, a wind turbine has a capacity of 2.5 to 3 megawatts, enough to power 2 to 3 electric trains. Lastly, a nuclear power plant is able to produce 0.5 to 1 gigawatts. The Point Lepreau nuclear generating station in New Brunswick has a gross output of 0.7 gigawatts and generated close to 5.8 terawatt hours between 2019 and 2020. This amount of energy could power the liftoff of 527 space shuttles. In 2018, Nova Scotia's total renewable energy generation came to 2.3 terawatt hours. That could power a lot of microwaves.
According to Nova Scotia Power, biomass, wind, and hydroelectric sources are currently being used to meet 27% of the province's total energy demand. Yet we still rely on solid fuels for almost half of our power, making Nova Scotia one of the most coal-dependent provinces in the country. In order for the province to meet our goals, Nova Scotia must find renewable sources of energy to fill the gap that coal will inevitably leave when it is phased out. So, what options does Nova Scotia have moving forward? First, let's break down the potential to expand existing renewable technologies in the province.
As of 2018, biomass and geothermal sources made up 3% of the province's total energy. Following the closure of the Pictou Northern Pulp and Paper Mill this year, hundreds of thousands of tons of surplus wood waste are waiting to either be used within the province or exported. Currently, these wood chips are being burned and converted to energy at 2 biomass facilities. But this has been identified as a short-term solution. One option is to use this wood waste to power district heating systems, which use central energy sources to efficiently provide space and water heat for buildings. This biomass could help meet approximately a third of the province's heating demand. The Nova Scotia government has recently announced 6 new test sites for district heating systems, so we may have more insight soon on whether this type of energy solution could be the future. Another potential biomass technology is anaerobic digestion. Livestock waste produced from farmland in the province could be broken down by microorganisms in the absence of oxygen to create biogas, which is then used to create electricity. A dairy farm in the Shubenacadie region has successfully implemented this technology and provides power for hundreds of homes in the area. This type of renewable energy could be widely adapted in rural communities across the province. The 2012 Marine Renewable Energy Strategy indicates that there are multiple technologies that Nova Scotia could use to harness its unique and powerful aquatic resources, including wave and tidal power. While these technologies are currently quite expensive and still require a significant amount of research, Energy Nova Scotia appears to be optimistic. It is expected that more innovation and higher deployment of these devices will drive down the cost of implementing these systems. This would allow for coastal areas to afford small-scale tidal plants to power their communities and generate revenue through feed-in tariffs.
Despite issues with previous tidal stations, 5 new projects are slated to be developed over the coming years, each with a capacity of 3 to 5 megawatts. With tidal technology far from being perfect, only time will tell whether these new devices will be a success.
Wind power has become a significant source of renewable energy in the province over the past decade. One potential expansion to current wind energy infrastructure is the harnessing of offshore wind. Offshore turbines generate 50% more electricity than their landlocked counterparts, while providing less of a disruption to the habitats of birds and humans alike. One study found that offshore wind farms in Nova Scotia could produce up to 21 terawatts per year, which would supply 43% of the province's total energy demand.
In 2015, a 1 gigawatt wind farm was proposed off the coast of Yarmouth. This project could provide the opportunity to greatly expand the province's energy market and provide numerous jobs. The addition of offshore wind farms in Nova Scotia could make hitting the province's renewable energy goals a breeze.
Nova Scotia has little solar infrastructure in place besides the incentives and rebate programs provided by Energy Nova Scotia. A major drawback to solar technology is the cost, which is more expensive than other renewables. A national leader of solar power is Ontario, which generates 98% of Canadian solar energy. This is because of the province's feed-in tariff program that incentivizes citizens with a high payment rate per kilowatt hour. If Nova Scotia is able to provide incentives based on the Ontario model, solar energy could play a much larger role in the province's renewable energy scene.
While we have talked about possibilities to expand our current energy infrastructure, there are many sustainable technologies that are not yet widely available in the province that could make a big impact. This includes ocean and geothermal infrastructure, algae harvesting, and even nuclear power. There are many other forms of energy that must be considered in Nova Scotia's net zero plan. And while this transition to sustainable energy won't be as easy as flicking a switch, we hope that this video has cast some light on the topic. We need to work together before climate change leaves us all in the dark.